He is Jalen Rose.
What up, though?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in.
Together with Jalen Jacoby, what is it that we do?
We give the people what they want.
Happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, which means last night we had Thursday Night Football, the Texans and the Colts. The Texans needed to bounce back after getting waxed by the Ravens, and they did against my guy Jacoby and the Colts. Deshaun Watson played well. That man right there, way too open to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He had 2 touchdowns on the night. After they got beat so badly on Sunday by the Ravens, they looked pretty good last night. Can you take them seriously as a contender in the AFC?
So I want to separate this into classes. So for me,
Okay.
it's the Ravens and the Patriots. Then there's Kansas City in a class of their own, depending on Mahomes' excellence, the reigning MVP. And then it's the Texans. And then it's everyone else. That's how I'm separating the AFC. Only 4 true top-tier teams in that conference. So they deserve to be in the discussion. But anytime you're playing without J.J. Watt, you traded Clowney, I don't think that defense is going to be clearly as stout as you hoped that it would be as the season progresses.
Yep.
They played against a Colts team. It was a good win. But like you said, DeAndre Hopkins, while not physically as imposing as Julio Jones, he has to be the second best receiver in football. People got to start giving him props for that. And Will Fuller seemed to be blazing past defenders, catching bombs. Deshaun Watson has a pretty deep ball, by the way.
You mentioned Will Fuller, and I think that he was sort of the key to them last night because, of course, you can put so much tension on DeAndre Hopkins. You need to burn the defense with another threat. Will Fuller caught 2 really deep, really nice passes. Do you think that they can get this consistently from him and Deshaun Watson connecting?
You hope so, but when you have the dynamic of Deshaun Watson, anything is possible. I mean, that guy's a special player. The offensive line just has to do a better job of protecting him. And then if they can create some balance with high running the football, that allows you to get those deep opportunities down the field.
You know what? It's good to see the Texans win because they are sort of part of that, one of the contenders in the AFC. I kind of agree with your tiers, but it's hate to see my guy Jacoby lose. Come on, Jacoby. That MVP candidacy is not looking great right now. My MVP pick is not looking great right now. He's going to have to really light up the league the next 6 weeks or so, or 5 weeks or so, to get that MVP. I don't know if he's going to make it. Do you think Jacoby's going to be the MVP?
Not going to be able to do it. But I give him a lot of credit. Anytime a football team loses Andrew Luck, you expect a drop-off, not only production-wise, but also in the trust of the other 52 guys. They seem to get rejuvenated knowing that Luck's health situation was not going to be a part of their team, and they rallied behind Jacoby Brissett, gave him a new contract as an organization, so they believe in him going forward.
Well, the Bucks beat the Blazers last night. Carmelo Anthony played, and he looked pretty good in his second game in a Blazers uniform. He went 3 for 5 from 3, only 6 for 15 from the field, but he looked pretty good. Jalen, do you think this is the sort of Carmelo Anthony that you can expect for the rest of the season?
Don't sleep on LaBissiere. He had 22 and 12. C.J. McCollum had 37 points, but it was great to see Melo get a couple of walk-up threes, play more like a stretch 4, get opportunities to play offensively and be creative. When Dame Lillard comes back, it's clearly going to look a lot different because he's the Portland Trail Blazers' best player. But what Carmelo Anthony has proven is what we've already known. The last year, him not being in the league had nothing to do with his ability. It has something to do, as he mentioned, with him humbling himself, realizing that he had to fall into a role. It's just that for the Portland Trail Blazers, that role is starting. That role allows him to score double figures in both of the games that he's participated in.
It's just so nice to see him back out there. We're doing the celebration and yelling at people when he's trying to get rebounds and cursing. It's the best. And just the confidence of Carmelo is still there. As you can see at this play at the end of the half, you know he wants to take the last shot. The clock is ticking down. So here we have him. He's like, Giannis, don't worry, I don't need a pick. I'll take Giannis. No big deal at all. I got this. And then he does end up getting a screen here. So he decides to take Giannis and Lopez to the basket, and it ends the way you'd expect it to. Do you think he's going to have to change his game a little bit, or do you respect the confidence?
He's not going to change his game, but we got to call that a segment. No country for old men, because you're going to see those plays happen. While the opportunities to knock down mid-range and jab step and 15 to 18-footer going to happen, when he's trying to finish at that rim over young, longer players, he's going to get some shots blocked.
So we're talking about Carmelo because he's a future Hall of Famer. He's a superstar, and he's only playing his second game. But the real story of this game were the Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He had 24, 19, and 15 assists. Jalen, he is third in the league in points per game, second in the league in rebounds per game. Are we sort of sleeping on what a year Giannis has put together so far?
Bledsoe also had 30. Connaughton had 18, spreading the basketball around. And the great thing about Giannis, if you notice, they basically play him at the 4. They play him at the 5. They use him to initiate offense. They'll get it to him at the top of the key. They'll get it to him at the elbow. They get it to him on the block. They're doing a great job of moving him around. And his court vision and his passing has improved so very much. It's impressive when a guy his size can get you 15 assists.
Yeah, 15 assists, 19. It's just such a huge game. And I think that we're so enamored with the new toys like Luka Doncic and Trae Young that we're overlooking what Giannis is doing in Milwaukee. And Jalen, there's some things that are sort of balanced out in the NBA. Do you remember the Suns? They had that hot start. Well, now they're kind of back to 500, and the Pelicans had that really slow start, and they're starting to win some games too. That's what happened last night in Phoenix, where the Pelicans beat the Suns, and Brandon Ingram had a really rough first half. Shook that off, ended up scoring 15 in the fourth quarter alone to bring the Pelicans to this win. Is this the Pelicans that you expected to see, that they're now sort of coming into form?
Redick had 26. Drew Holiday had 23. Shout out to Kelly Oubre of the Suns. He had 25. He's been balling recently. But Brandon Ingram is a person that I consider a professional scorer. He's averaging around 25. No Zion in the lineup. He now gets a chance to be featured. He showed in LA that he could be this kind of player. This is why sometimes when you're a young, talented player and even a lottery pick, situation does matter. He's growing into his opportunity, which has allowed him to grow into his game, and he's doing a terrific job of leading the Pelicans in a big win over the Suns.
Jalen, I think we forget quickly just what a big deal Zion Williamson was heading into the season. We spent all summer long talking about Zion Williamson. It is all we talked about. We were so excited for him to start. And then, he got hurt. And he told us that he'd be out for a while, but there's no real timetable for his return. There's no real, this is when we'll see Zion Williamson play NBA basketball. How concerning is that for you and for fans of the game?
I'm not concerned about the prognosis because this is the smart way to play it. Anytime you put timelines on it, that never usually goes good. And then all of a sudden, you have teammates looking, you have fans waiting, you have media asking questions. When you say he's out indefinitely, that confirms it. You allow him to get some practices, try to get his physical conditioning back. See, that's the other thing. Not only is he injured, Jacoby, it's an injury to his knee, which is hard for him to maintain a level of fitness that's going to allow him to be productive as an NBA basketball player, a 6'7" frame, weighing 285 pounds. So even when he does get healthy, I would give him a couple of weeks to a month to even practice fully before I even consider putting him back out on the floor.
Well, you saw that picture that I saw of him in the sweatshirt. Do you think he gained some weight, or was that just a bad angle?
He probably did gain some weight. It's hard to maintain shape when you have a knee injury. What you gonna do? You can't do much running, can't do much jumping. So, like any human being, of course he's gonna put on some pounds.
Oh, I would gain so much weight if I had a knee injury. Even if I just took 3 weeks off, I'd turn into Kangaroo Jacoby. It is now time for Soft Move or Boss Move. The Texans linebacker group showed up to the game last night in costume. They're dressed kind of like Mortal Kombat, I guess. Jalen Rose showing up to work in costume. Soft move or boss move?
Doing things via solidarity for me is always a boss move, especially when you go out and you win against Jacoby in a big-time Thursday night football game. Boss move.
Okay. I'm going soft move on this one. If you dress up as something, you shouldn't have to explain what you are. You know what I mean? When you see that video and you're like, what are they dressed as? I have no idea. Like, apparently it was Mortal Kombat, but I think Raiden, were they all Raiden? I don't remember Raiden having his shirt off like that. Here's my thing. If you dress up in a costume, I should be able to look at it and immediately know what you are. So that is why I find this to be a soft move. Jalen Rose, I can't believe I'm saying this, but ESPN aired LeBron James and Dwayne Wade's son basketball game, and people watched, and we're going to put it on the show right after this. Coming to you live from Pier 17 in the Seaport District of Manhattan and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, we all remember the ugly incident at the end of last week's Thursday night football game between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. Myles Garrett appealed his suspension for hitting Rudolph in the head with Rudolph's helmet. That appeal was upheld. So he is now indefinitely suspended from the NFL. And during the process, he accused Mason Rudolph of using a racial slur against him to sort of entice the incident. Jalen, what do you think about the suspension being upheld and Myles Garrett's accusation that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur?
We have no way of proving whether it's true or false. Usually in circumstances like this, the person after the game would have acknowledged that the slur happened once reporters walked into the locker room. Myles Garrett chose not to do that. However, he did choose to do that when he was being interviewed by the NFL and what he thought was going to be a confidential revealing. For some strange reason, we actually know about it, which he didn't want us to know about it. But either way, I'm not mad at the suspension. I think 6 games is right on course. I figured Pouncey's would get reduced from 3 to 2. The disappointing one for me is that Mason Rudolph should have at least got a game.
Definitely should have got a game.
He should have gotten at least one game. And so I would have approached it different. Had I heard a slur, I would have let it be known after the game. But he didn't do that. But either way, I think the suspension is warranted.
I think it's worth saying that we do not know whether or not a racial slur was used, and Mason Rudolph has also, through a statement through his lawyer, denied that he did do that, and we will never find out. But it's interesting to put this behind us because and now Myles Garrett needs to sort of like go back to the league office to be reinstated. Like, not only is he indefinitely suspended, he needs to sort of like go back and start the process again to get reinstated. Do you expect to see him to play game 1 next season?
Absolutely. I do not think that this should progress until next season for a couple of reasons. I think 6 games is substantial. I also believe that you don't want to carry negative energy from the previous season into the next season, which is going to affect both teams directly and indirectly. These are division rivals that play one another a couple of times a year, and those games always get physical and get heated. So I think this season would be enough for Myles Garrett, especially for a team like the Browns that don't look like they're making the playoffs anyway.
Even though the Browns do have a very weak schedule, I do not think that the playoffs will be in play for Cleveland this year. Well, something else might be in play for next year, which is pretty interesting. A gentleman by the name of Floyd Mayweather likes to keep himself in the news. He likes to be relevant. He likes to have people talking about him. So he went to Instagram and posted this coming out of retirement in 2020. Jalen, he has an undefeated record. Do you think he would jeopardize this undefeated record in the year 2020?
I'm going to have to hit him on text and see if this is real or not, because I would think if he's going to return to the fight game, it would literally be something unorthodox. Kind of like we saw with Conor McGregor or something like that. I don't anticipate him getting back into a ring fighting a young upstart prospect.
Well, this happened. This really happened. On ESPN3, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade's son played together in a real game for Sierra Canyon. It was not a very competitive game, and I think Bronny had 10 and Zaire had 6. But Jalen, here's my question for you. Will all of this attention and all of this spotlight, will this actually be bad for their development as players?
I think it's good in today's climate, Jacoby, because what ends up happening is The more famous you are at a young age, you get used to the scrutiny, you get used to the success, and normally as you start to get older, your skin becomes a lot thicker in dealing with it, whether it's social media, whether it's television media. Before, I think this is something that really bothered a lot of young stars, whether in entertainment or actors or even athletes, being the son or the daughter of a famous athlete, or being young, being famous and or successful so very young. Then once you start to get older, it seems like it became a negative thing. But for these young players whose fathers have been in the spotlight forever, I think it's a good thing that now they're playing on TV. We're analyzing every play. So now as they continue to get a little bit older, they understand it comes with the territory.
What about being one of their teammates, right? Like, imagine you're one of their teammates. You consider yourself a better basketball player than these two, yet all people will talk about is these two players because of their parents. Would you feel a certain way if you scored 20, but Jalen and Jacoby are talking about someone else who scored 10?
No, because let me tell you how sports work. ESPN3 wouldn't be there if it wasn't for those two guys. But if I'm the guy that scored 20, now more people get a chance to see me, whether they're watching for them or not. That's how rankings work. That's how recruiting work. It creates a bigger stage for everybody to perform on both teams. Remember, this works both ways now.
Good point.
I know that they won via blowout, but there are going to be times where they get crossed up, where they get dunked on, where they have bad turnovers. That's what sports does to you. It tests your resolve on a game-to-game basis.
It is now time for Cultural or Regional. Jalen, you know I love Post Malone. I just love his music so much. And he did something that shocked me. Him and one of his friends, an artist named Tyler Yahweh, played beer pong for $50,000, and then Yahweh immediately Venmo'd Post Malone the $50,000 winnings. But my question for you is this. You know, Post Malone looks like me. Yahweh looks like you. Is beer pong cultural or regional?
It's definitely cultural, and I gotta say something to Yahweh. You got bamboozled. You got hoodwinked. You got ran amok. You were led astray. Did you actually think that you were gonna be the white guy at beer pong? Something that he's been exposed to since he was wearing diapers, something he probably been doing since he was in high school. You all of a sudden think that you're gonna show up as an adult and be an experienced veteran like Post Malone? That was a soft move.
I'm going to say that it could somewhat be regional too, because I went to New York University. I never played beer pong once. I think it's like a suburban phenomenon as well. Like it's cultural and regional. That's my take. Jalen, the Lions are playing a game in which they are favored to win the game. We will get Jalen Rose's prediction for the Lions, and we'll preview the NFL weekend. NBA action doubleheader tonight, 8 p.m. Spurs against the Sixers. And then in the nightcap, we have the Rockets taking on the Clippers. And before all that, at 6 p.m. on SportsCenter, they'll be talking about the brawl in the Browns and Westbrook and PG and much more. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, sometimes we lean on your NBA experience for insight. Please take us behind the curtain. There was a detailed Jackie McMullen report about Kyrie Irving's behavior, and now there are some more rumors that he sort of caused some tension in the locker room. And Jared Allen addressed that with Bleacher Report. He said, quote, "He acts like a normal teammate. People say that he has mood swings, but that's a complete lie. He wants to see us succeed and do well, if anything." So, Jalen, I ask you to take us behind the curtain. Can reports of tension cause tension in a locker room?
I don't think they could cause tension in the locker room. Losing basketball games does. And you know I like to gauge success off of realistic expectations. The Nets were 42-40 last year, but they seem to have as much fun as any team in the league. Now when you add Kyrie Irving in the offseason, you expect the team to improve. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. Kyrie has missed a couple of games. Karis LeVert is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. And you clearly have no Kevin Durant for the entire season. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this team over the next month or so. If they can find a way to string together some victories.
Jalen, the Lions go to Washington and have a very winnable game. Can the Lions actually win an NFL game on Sunday?
Dwayne Haskins going to be in trouble.
Have a good Friday. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll be back on Monday, ESPN2 at 2 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're far too kind.